This is Cars and Bids, and today I want to talk over the best moments from our first year. Cars and Bids officially launched a year ago. Of course, we were developing it long before that, but it has been a year since we've launched and a year since it's been a huge part of my life, but also a great one. It's been so much fun, especially because it's been successful and crazy to watch it all grow. And I want to go over the last year, we've had some really, obviously every day is great. We sell a lot of cars, a lot of fun. But I want to go over some of the very pinnacle moments over the last year and some of the moments that were most special to me. So let's do it. Okay, so I don't have these moments like ranked in order, these special Cars and Bids moments, but I have them chronological. And that's probably the best way to do it. Over the last year, like which moments have meant the most to me, you know, on the site and from the start to now and you know, how has it kind of progressed? So I'm going to start with when we started. We launched on June 8th of 2020 and we were launching into COVID but we had spent all this money developing this site and all this time. We had employees and we just had to launch. And there was kind of a thought among the team that we might be launching into dismal failure just because of COVID. But we just couldn't continue to delay. It was just, we had to get going. We were paying people. We needed to start revenue, you know? And I remember that first day that we launched, I've talked about this a lot of times, even on this channel, but the first day that we launched, it was a huge deal. You know, I put out a video and then we turned the site on and then it was just like, okay, what happens? And the submissions just started flowing. We were initially paying people $1,000, sellers $1,000 if they would be one of the first 25 sellers or 50 sellers with us, and then $500 for the next 25 or 50 sellers. And that obviously was a big promotion that worked well, and it got a lot of people to come to us. But we got like 900 some submissions that first week. And I remember the biggest fear when we first launched the site for me was that we wouldn't get any submissions. And so to get that validation, like, hey, this is something that might work, this is something that could be great, it was really, really, really special for me to sit there and see on that Tuesday, I guess it was, maybe a Monday that we launched, like just the sheer number of cars. And then obviously we were scrambling because we had to do something about it. We had expected maybe 20 submissions or 30, and now we'd only have like a couple of employees. Like, I gotta do something, you know, how are we gonna get these cars sold? But that was a really, 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 really huge moment, very validating. Like even, you know, after all the time we spent developing and thinking about this, it could have just died within that first week. If no one had come, that would have been it. But it didn't. And that was huge. That was like a huge, huge moment that first week, getting all those cars, seeing, hey, this might work, at least from a, you know, people wanting to sell their cars on the site sort of perspective. And honestly, even users, I mean, I remember the first few registered users. I remember we were sitting there going, oh my God, we have a comment, we have another comment, we have a third comment, we have a bid. And it was like, oh my God, this is working. People are using this. This is real. This is real. You know, it was an amazing, amazing achievement at the time. Just the fact that it worked and that people were using it and all that. So the next big moment I remember was actually the very next week. And what happened was, you know, our auctions last for a week, give or take. And the first cars that launched that first week, they were going to close the second week. And so this first week was a real test of two things. It was whether the site worked, and it was whether people would comment, bid, sell, that sort of thing. But the real test of the site was going to be in the second week when cars would be selling, because you have this situation where if you don't show some sales quickly, people are gonna start thinking that Cars and Bids isn't a real place to buy a car. You know, they're gonna say, oh, well, you know, Cars and Bids, this cool thing that Doug created, but it's not really working. And so it was really important to us that two things happened that second week. Number one, the site worked as the auctions were closing and the cars were selling, but also number two, that the cars were actually selling. And my car was the first one to go up for sale on the second week to actually finish, and it was with no reserve. And I didn't really care that much what it sold for because I had put so much into this website already. If the car sold for a few grand and what it was worth, didn't really matter to me. I wanted to show that it worked and to show that it sold. And so my car was the first one to come up. And because there had been so much attention on my car, the bidding had already been pretty strong. And so there wasn't a bidding war at the end of my car. It was just like the bid that from a few hours earlier had won it, and that was that. And it was like, okay, fine. And what happened with the site was, you know, the bid came in, the timer timed out, no other bids came in, and it showed it was sold. And it went into the results section. It was like, okay, wait a minute, that worked. But then the next car to come up was my friend Perry's Porsche 911. And this car had a reserve on it. It was a little under where we thought it would sell, but obviously that's typically what happens on the site. You know, people wait till the last second to bid. So we were thinking, okay, is there gonna be a bidding war here? Like, is this gonna come? And that car ends like an hour after mine or 30 minutes, I don't remember, and a bid rolls in the last couple minutes, and then another bid, and then another bid, or whatever it was, 3, 4, I don't remember how many it was. We pushed it over reserve, and then it keeps going, and then it's like, oh my God, like this is real. Like a car is being bid, and so then it finished. It wasn't a huge bidding war, but it got to where, certainly got to where it was worth. Auction ends, and it's like, okay, wait, that's it, 2. And that was the first day. We sold 2 cars, mine and like one of my best friends who was in my wedding. So I was like, okay, this was a pretty easy task. You know, these people I can kind of manage. The public hasn't come to this yet. But the point was, it had worked. And as crazy as it was when we launched the first week and got all those submissions and the website worked and people commented and bid and whatever, and it was like proof of it being real, to me, it didn't start to feel real until that happened, until the second week when the first couple cars sold. And I've told this story before, but it was COVID, no one was inside. My friends and I, my friends, the people I launched the site with, who were also my friends, we were all in my patio, like, and a bid would come in and we'd like scream with joy, like, yes, yes. We were so excited that it was actually working. But to me, the real moment that I remember where I really felt the site was working, and I think I mentioned this on a podcast at one point, the first week or 2, there was a car that we had some debate about among our staff about what the reserve should be set at, and eventually I acquiesced and gave the guy a reserve that I thought was high. And I didn't think the car was going to sell. And in no sale, early on, a no sale looks really bad. People look at it and they say, well, this new site isn't selling any cars. Why should I use them? I could use one of their competitors, whatever. So it was really important in those first few weeks that we had to show good sales. And so we did on that first day. The second day, I think one didn't sell and one did. Then the third day, more sold. I mean, it was going well. But that one car, I remember thinking like to myself, like, that's going to be a real test. Like, most of the people who sold in the first couple of weeks were my friends, and they were kind of prepared to understand, like, hey, I'm part of Doug's ridiculous new project here. Like, I get what's going to happen. But once the public comes in, you're playing with people's money. Like, you have to make sure everything works and things sell for real values. And by the way, my friends' cars did sell for real values, but we didn't know that at the time, and they were willing to take that risk. So anyway, the point is, this car comes up after this kind of debate about what it was worth, and I was filming, you know, because we launched the site, but I had to go back and start filming videos pretty quickly to you know, continue my YouTube channel. And so I was filming, and I remember I was filming at the Audi dealer, the BMW dealer, and I was in the back seat of a car shooting the little quirks, and this one comes up to finish. And I'm sitting there watching it, and you know, I was skeptical of the reserve, and then it gets a bid at the end, and it gets another bid, and then there's a war, and it's like a 3-way war, and it's going, and it's like a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, bidding, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and I'm sitting in there like freaking out. I'm like, oh my God. First off, it went over the reserve that I thought was too high, but also proof of concept. Like, not only can we sell my friends' cars and like onesie, twosie cars here and there, like this is a real car getting a real result, like going over, like a bidding war is happening. Like, we built this thing and we're seeing a bidding war. Like, this is so cool. And I will never forget that moment. I texted my partner, you know, everybody was still working at my house, but I texted my partner privately and I was like, this is real. Like, this is something. Like, this is something that we've done here. And I will never, ever, ever forget that moment, that very first real bidding war on that very first car that I didn't think would sell. And of course it did sell. And the seller was happy and the buyer got a cool car. And that moment was a really, really special one. But anyway, continuing on, there were other special moments throughout this last year. A big one was we got a McLaren 720S submitted to us very early on. The seller was super reasonable with the reserve. And we said, yeah, we'll take a gamble, we'll do it. You know, supercars don't tend to do that great on these auction sites. People want to see them, they want to drive them. And often supercars are kind of impulse purchases. You don't really necessarily want like a whole week to think about it, that kind of thing. But I just say, yeah, he's reasonable in the reserve, it might sell, let's just do it. So we took the 720S. And, the week goes by and we're all kind of monitoring it. And I've always of the opinion that I'd rather kind of grow it with cars that I think are really our strong suit type cars, Land Cruisers and M5s and S2000s and M3s, and kind of grow it that way. And supercars, they get a lot of views, but I want stuff that sells and stuff that really builds a foundation for the site. So I kind of was writing it off, like no one's really going to buy this thing. It's not really going to work. But lo and behold, it comes up to the final day and the final few hours and the final few minutes, and it starts to hit the reserve. And we're still here at my house, working, and I'm like, oh my God, this is it. It's doing it. We're selling a McLaren 720S. And that was we've had these few validating moments, that first week when we got all the submissions and people signed up and joined, and then the second week when cars actually sold, and then the third week when, that one car sold over reserve with the bidding war that I was excited. And then the next week we sell a 720S. And it's like, there are these stair steps that prove to us like, this is real. This is actually real. And when you launch something, you don't know. You just have no clue. Anything could happen. There have been a lot of these car auction websites launched over the last couple of years since I launched this one, and they're not always as successful because it's not easy to actually do this, to bring people here, to put together a great site. People think it's easier than it is, and it isn't. And seeing some of these validating things were proof, hey, this is a real thing. And on that note, another huge, momentous occurrence that I will never forget was when we sold the BMW 850 CSI. So there was this purple 850 CSI, and the seller had submitted to us, and he wanted what I thought was kind of a high reserve. We went back and forth a little bit, and he was like, fine, I'll just take your reserve, but it's gonna sell for this, whatever it was. I was like, yeah, all right, whatever. So we got the car on the site. I was really excited about it because this is a high dollar, very special car. I'd been professionally photographed. It was like one of one in that color combination. It was perfect. And I was skeptical, but it came, and get up to the final day, and on the final day and the final hour, the bids just were flying in. Everyone wanted this car. Everyone in the 850 CSI community, which is kind of like a well-heeled, car collector world, were bidding on this car. And that was validating to me in the sense that it was like, okay, we're not just now selling M5s and M3s and S2000s, whatever. We are starting to make a mark in this collector world with these really, really special cars. They're here. They're seeing us. They see us. They see that we're real. They're bidding. They're using the site. And it was, again, another piece of validation. Like, we can not only deliver good values for M3s and M5s and all that, which by then had been proven, but we can also deliver a good value on a truly, truly special car. And this one sold. I'm sure the buyer was thrilled. It was a very special car. You're literally never going to find another one. It was one of one. The seller was very happy. I was just over the moon. It was like, wow, another validating example of this is a real thing that's been created that is actually working as intended. And now it's growing, and now it's finding a new audience. And that's what you want. That's the only thing you can hope for with a business. And it didn't. But then, in the fall, I remember, our submissions started to decrease. And we here in Southern California, we don't think about seasons all that often. And the submissions started to decrease. And because I had lived in Colorado and Pennsylvania before, I told the team, it'll be decreasing a little bit because of the winter, but it'll drop and we'll be right back. Don't worry, it's gonna be fine. But everybody on the team was nervous. It was like, have we had our moment and lost it? Have everybody saw it, we were the cool new thing, and now they've moved on. And submissions are down, and it's like October, no, it was really more like December, January. And I think another huge moment for the site was when March kind of came, late February, March, and the submissions started to go back up. And then, in February, March, they're going back up. Mid-March, they're going way back up. By the end of March, they're way back before they had ever been at any point, even, the prior fall or summer. April, they're the highest they've ever been, April, May, June. And now it's suddenly like, oh my God, okay, yeah, it was a seasonal effect. We haven't lost our moment. We're still here. We're still doing great. And that also was validating. It was like we experienced seasonal effects like you'd expect in the car business, but we returned. We are not just a flash in the pan. This is real, and it's accelerating. And our submissions now are higher than they've ever been, which I'm super, super proud about. Interestingly, though, that winter, I had a great validating experience myself. I was in the East Coast with my friends, where I always go in the winter, and for New Year's. And I was there, and the submissions were down, and I was just, it's gray and it's cold, and I'm a little depressed about the whole thing. And somebody walks up to me in the street. They recognize me, which happens, relatively regularly. It's always a nice conversation. And it wasn't particularly remarkable, except during the conversation, he goes, yeah, I love your videos, whatever. He goes, by the way, can I ask your opinion about a car I'm thinking about buying? People do this sometimes. I said, yeah, of course. He said, I'm thinking of buying this, I think it was an Audi S5 on this website, Cars and Bids. Have you ever heard of that? And I'm like, heard of it? That's my website. But that was a super validating moment because then it was starting to be like, wait a minute, like this guy obviously is a casual fan. He does it in my mention and all the start of all of my videos. But the point is like, this guy knows the thing separate from me. And that's just so cool. Like this is taking off even beyond my audience. And now it's kind of funny. You know, I write this Doug's take on every car, like my opinion of each car. And sometimes we'll get people reaching out being like, hey, who's this Doug guy? And why is he writing about my car? It's like, oh my God, this is so funny. Like initially all the people who were on the site were my fans, my followers, whatever. Now we've expanded beyond that, which we needed to do, you know, to make it a real thing. You couldn't just have my following, my subscribers. And it's funny to me, occasionally this does happen when random people come up to me on the street talking about cars and not realize that cars and bids is my thing and talk about it or bring it up, or I'll hear it brought up casually somewhere else. And that is a proud moment for a business owner when it's like, this is existing outside of just me. It's not like my friends and family and followers are using it, like the world is using it. And so that was a validating moment that winter that helped carry me through into the spring when the submissions started to come back up. So there you go. I mean, those were the top moments from the last year, really. I think over the last few months, we haven't had as many like crazy special moments. We've just been in sort of a building and expanding phase. Really want to continue to increase the number of auctions we're getting, the number of cars, that sort of thing. And it's worked, and I'm just so proud of it. And those first few months were so tough. The first couple months were the hardest of anything that I've ever done in my entire life. It was unbelievably difficult, but we did it. And my team has been amazing. A lot of people out there think that it's just me doing this whole thing, which it is not. We have several employees, many, a dozen maybe, and everybody does an incredible job getting the cars in, writing the listings, submitting them. Our development team has done a fantastic job building a truly great website. Everybody loves the user experience, the design of the website, and I just couldn't be more proud of the way that it's gone. And I did not think it would be this successful this fast, and I'm thrilled that it is. And I'm so curious to see what the next, what the next year will bring or whatever. But those were my top moments. It was a crazy ride at the beginning, and it's still pretty crazy. And I'm still really excited every day when I see cars sell. I watch every auction close. Sometimes casually when I'm out filming. Sometimes, I just kind of check it a little bit later with my phone or whatever. But I watch every day to see every auction, and it always it's always interesting and it's always exciting. So thanks for participating, for being along with it in our first year of Cars and Bids.